for several days now, you must have seen passengers on social media putting up pictures of chaos at Delhi's T3 airport at the Indira Gandhi International Airport, complaining of long lines, congestion, etc. And today there has been some easing of that congestion after the Civil Aviation Minister stepped in himself. He went to inspect things at the airport a few days ago, and the government announced a series of measures it was putting in place to try and ease that chaos. So some easing has taken place, but there is still a long way to go. There are complaints also today from Bangalore's International Airport of long lines at immigration and security as well. And joining us now to talk about this is the Civil Aviation Minister, Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia. Mr. Scindia, thank you very much for speaking to us today. I just wanted to begin by asking you that when you went for this inspection, what really struck you as the primary reasons why this congestion was happening? Because otherwise, it really hasn't been a problem traveling in Indian airports until recently.
So first of all, thank you for having me, Nidhi. Let me say this to you and through you to our viewers as well, that the civil aviation sector in India has experienced a V-shaped recovery from a status of having our planes just sitting on the ground on the tarmac to today all being in the air. From a period of pre-COVID where we had a high of roughly about 4.1 passengers per day. This week, we have breached that number. We had 4.28 lakh passengers per day. We've surpassed 4 lakhs for 3 or 4 days in a row in this past week. And that indeed is a very heartening sign for the sector. But having said that, it brings with it issues of logistics, issues of operations. In between the value chain of passengers who are desirous of travel, as well as airlines who are very eager to provide that service, sits the airport. The airport's responsibility to ensure that it provides a seamless, efficient process by which the customers can get to the aircraft and complete their journey. Now, obviously, no one had anticipated the level of travel this festive season as has been played out. That being said, I very firmly believe that it is the airport operator's responsibility to provide that service. Which is why on the 7th of this month, I held a meeting in the ministry with all the airport operators, very clearly articulating the pain points, and we tried to evolve some solutions. Now, let me give you an example of that. Delhi Airport has a total of 14 gates for passengers and 2 gates for crew and our specially abled. We insisted that by the 12th of December, that must increase to 16 gates for passengers and 2 gates maintained for our crew and specially abled. I'm glad to report to you that on the 12th of December, when I went for my inspection, and that's one of the reasons I went for my inspection, is to see the execution of what we had committed to, that step had been taken. The second area and the most important area of the bottleneck in the critical path of passengers passing through the airport is the security check. And there the problem is really not Nidhi or CISS staff. The problem is that we do not have enough lines for security check. The number of lines that we had were 11 for passengers and 3 for crew and specially abled. We mandated on the meeting on the 7th that by the time I come on the 12th for a surprise visit, which was not expected, we must grow that number to 16 in total for both passengers as well as crew. On the 12th when I went, we had 16 lines in place. So we had an increase of almost close to about 20% in our capacity of security check-in. The third area and then we had a meeting for 3 hours at the airport. And we identified the following steps that need to be executed on a very strict schedule and timeline. The first step that I said is we need to have usherers outside the entrance gate. So that if Nidhi Razdan is traveling and gate number 4 is totally clogged, the usherer should be able to tell Nidhi Razdan, kindly go to gate number 9 because that is clear. How will the usherer be able to do that? I said set up a command and control center within the airport that monitors through video feed the crowd at every gate, so that the usherer can be told by walkie-talkie from the command and control center where they should push the passengers to enable free passage. That, I'm glad to report to you, has been in place from the 12th of December night, the day I mandated it to happen. The second step that I said must take place is that above every gate, you must have a digital TV screen that shows the queuing capacity and the queuing waiting time for every gate. So if I'm a passenger, that's right. So if I'm a passenger and I go to gate number 6 and there's a 20-minute queuing time and gate number 11 has only a 2-minute queuing time, I'll immediately go to gate number 11. That has been put in place on every gate. The third point that I mandated on the 12th of December was that, if you recall, there's a Naka almost 1.5 kilometers before the airport, where cars slow down and there's a barrier and a security check. I said, put up a huge digital screen at that Naka as well, so that if Nidhi Razdan is traveling, when she reaches the Naka, she knows which entry gate to go to. So there's a warning sign in advance as to which is the best entry gate to go to. That has been put in place as of yesterday.
Let me just ask you this. We noticed a change today because it was clear that people were getting into the airport much faster today than they have in recent days. But inside security was still an issue. You know, it was still up to 50 minutes for some people, half an hour for others. So obviously that's going to take some more time. Do you need more CISF personnel at security?
So if you allow me to finish, because I know this is going to take a little time, but I ask you to bear with me, because it's taken us a lot of time.
What will the anchor do then? What will the anchor do if you speak?
I think for once, because this is a public interest issue, please let me articulate
this is your
the solutions that we're having in place. What I was saying to you, the fifth initiative that we took is that this information with regard to entry gates must be put up on the Dial Twitter network as well as every airline. And if you've noticed, that has been done as well. We now move to the security check-in areas, which is the second bottleneck. As I mentioned to you, we have only had 11 plus 2 in place, which was augmented to 16 on the 12th of December. I went and inspected the areas myself, and there were 2 rows of 5 and 5 security lines with a huge barrier in between. I said, why don't we remove this barrier and create an extra line? And we had mandated that by today, which is by the 14th, that 17th security line should be created. And I'm glad to report to your viewers that the 17th security line has been created. So we've gone from 11 plus 2 to 17 today. My target is that by the end of this month, we should move to a number of 20 security lines at the Delhi airport. The next step that we had also looked at was with regard to CISF. And I'm glad to report to you that there is no shortage of CISF personnel manning security lines or even the augmented capacity. The DG of CISF was with me in that 3-hour meeting. We very fairly and squarely asked the Dial management, do you have a shortage of CISF staff? The clear answer was no, they are supporting us in every move we make. Therefore, the CISF issue is no longer an issue. The last point I want to make to you is that we also must look at the supply side. The fact is that if you look at it from an operations perspective, you cannot have a large number of landings and takeoff which is beyond your capability of throughput of the airport. And that's the position that Dial is in today. We have close to almost 10% more than what the airport can feed. Exactly. So what I have said after discussion is lower the landings and takeoffs in peak hours, which is 0500 to 0900, and move those landings and takeoffs to either non-peak hours during the day in T3 or move them to peak hours in T1 and T2. That will also ameliorate the situation in terms of the congestion and the clogging. That is supposed to happen by the end of this week or early next week, because the airlines also have to be brought on board. I don't want to inconvenience our passengers too much as well. So a little bit of blending will have to take place, which we are working on.
Right.
The final point I think
it's quite appreciated that, you know, all these steps have been taken and that you responded to people on social media. You took note of the concerns that they flagged and intervened here. But today, Mr. Scindia, passengers are complaining at Bangalore airport about similar congestion at immigration as well as security lines there.
So if you had allowed me, I would have covered that point as well, but I'm glad you asked.
But I have to ask you something.
I'm glad you asked the question. So I want to tell you that we have a 11-point template, which I am monitoring myself, on a twice a day basis in terms of what needs to be done in Delhi. The similar template has been created for Mumbai and for Bangalore. Please understand that Mumbai also has reached a new high. The last high in Mumbai was in 2017, which was roughly about 75 to 80,000 passengers per day. Yesterday, Mumbai touched 1.1 lakh passengers. The problem in Mumbai and in Bangalore is nowhere close to the problem in Delhi, but we need to make sure we tell all of these airports to make sure that the traveling experience for our customers is not as painful as it has been for the last 4 or 5 days. I understand the anxiety and the exasperation that customers have gone through. I do also understand that it is the job of the airports to provide a seamless process. We are coming down extremely diligently with regard to every airport, and we will ensure that we put in place measures for the short and medium term as well as long term. By the end of this year or next year, we propose to increase
the fact that the airport is actually taking
Delhi Airport to 23. And I have also said that the execution of T1, which will increase our capacity and resolve our problems in Delhi, which is slated, I think, for December or Jan of 23-24, we need to move up to November or so prior to the holiday season so that this congestion does not happen next year in Delhi.
So how long do you expect this congestion, to last in Delhi in particular? So are we looking at January, mid-January sometime?
So I think it's a factor of both increasing travelers as well as increasing landing and takeoff. So therefore, when we're looking at ameliorating the whole value chain, which is making sure we increase the capacity of entry and security and check-in, all 3 points at the airport, we lower the number of takeoffs and landings in peak hours, I think we will be able to flatten out volatility that Delhi Airport is experiencing currently. We have very high crests in peak hours 0500 to 0900, and then we have a flat.
Do you have a deadline in mind by when this can happen?
We need to flatten out that volatility, which is what we're intending to do in the next 7 to 10 days.
7 to 10 days. Okay, Mr. Scindia, one final question now that we have you here. There was a report today in the Times of India, that says that the International Civil Aviation Organization has clarified that it did not conduct any audit of SpiceJet, whereas the airline says that the organization did audit its safety recently. It's a bit concerning, this report. Anything you can tell us about this?
Well, let me tell you very clearly, first of all, the good news is that India was at in the last audit of ICAO at the 102nd position, which was done in 2018. We have moved today in 2022 to the 48th position. So we are amongst the most developed countries of the world today in terms of safety and security within our aviation network as mandated and as certified by the International Civil Aviation Organization. Across all parameters, there are a total of 8 parameters across which ICAO judges you. Across all parameters, we have seen an increase, save 2 areas which were not audited. Across 6, we have seen an increase, and our total score has gone from roughly a low score of 69 to almost 86 or 87%. So that's great news with regard to civil aviation in India in terms of our systems and processes, which we have tried to improve over the last 4 years. As far as this particular report is concerned, let me repeat that ICAO does not audit, investigate, certify any airline. ICAO only certifies, investigates and audits civil aviation sectors in a particular country. In our case, DGCA, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation.
So is SpiceJet being asked for an explanation?
As far as that report is concerned, whatever needs to be done will be done. But let me clarify for you and your viewers that this certification and audit is meant only for DGCA and not for any airline.
Because SpiceJet made this as a public declaration. Therefore, will the airline be summoned to explain?
I have answered the question very fairly and squarely.
All right, Mr. Scindia, thank you for your time today, for joining us on the airport chaos in particular. That is something that concerns all travelers in this country. Let's hope that things do get better in the next 7 to 10 days, which is what you have set out as a target. Thank you.